The desert was silent except for the endless whisper of wind. Fine sand stretched in every direction, rolling over broken stones and the remains of forgotten walls. Once, long ago, this had been an important Earth base. Now it was nothing but ruins half buried in dust. The sun beat down, unforgiving, as three figures walked carefully through the broken ground. Rallan led the way, his eyes scanning the horizon. He was not young, but his steady hands and calm voice made the others trust him. Behind him walked Myra, quick and curious, always ready to study old machines. At the rear followed Bren, strong and quiet, carrying the heavier tools. They were not soldiers or scientists. They were salvagers, moving from one ruin to another, hoping to find anything valuable enough to sell. Another wasted day, Bren said, brushing sand from his face. This place is dead. Wait, Myra whispered. She had stopped near a cracked wall, half hidden by sand. She pointed to the ground where a faint line of metal peeked out from beneath the dune. Look here. That is not part of the wall. Rallan knelt and brushed the sand aside. His fingers found the edge of something smooth and solid. He tapped it, and the dull ring of steel answered. This was no broken weapon or abandoned tool. It was large, and it was buried deep. We dig, Rallan said. For hours they worked. The sun sank lower, and shadows stretched long across the desert. Bit by bit, they revealed a surface of dark metal, curved and strong, like the side of a giant ship. Symbols were faintly marked on the surface, words almost lost to time. Myra wiped them clean and read aloud, her voice trembling. Vanguard 1. Bran frowned. Never heard of it? Must be just another old ship. Myra shook her head. No. This is not normal construction. Look at the alloy. Look at the size. It is far beyond anything we know. As the last of the light faded, the team uncovered more. What they had found was not a small vessel. It was enormous, a hidden beast sleeping beneath the sand. Only a fraction was exposed, yet it already towered above them. That night, they made camp near the uncovered hull. The fire burned low, and the desert air turned cold. Rallan sat quietly, staring at the metal surface. This ship was buried here for a reason, he said. Someone wanted it hidden. Myra nodded. I have read old records. Before Earth joined the Empire, there were whispers of a secret project. A prototype warship built in secret, never used. Some said it was too dangerous. Some said it was lost. What if this is it? Bran laughed nervously. A story? Nothing more. If the Empire knew of this place, they would have taken it long ago. Unless they never found it, Rallan said. His eyes did not leave the dark surface of the ship. Unless someone on Earth made sure it stayed hidden. The wind howled around them, carrying the sound of sand shifting across the hull. It almost seemed like the ship was breathing in its sleep. The next morning, they began again. With each strike of their tools, more of the ship came into view. They found a sealed hatch, smooth and unbroken, as if untouched by centuries. Myra placed her hand against it and felt a faint vibration, like the heartbeat of something alive. It still has power, she whispered. Rallan pressed his ear close to the hatch. Deep within, there was a sound, quiet, steady, mechanical. The ship was not dead. It was waiting. Bran stepped back, his face pale. If this is what you think it is, then we should leave it alone. Nothing good comes from waking old things. But Rallan shook his head. This ship is part of Earth. If it was made by our people, then it belongs to us. And if it still breathes, then it is meant to rise again. With Myra's careful hands, they searched along the hatch until they found an old panel. Dust fell as she pried it open. Inside were controls, dimly glowing after all this time. She touched one, and the ground trembled. The hatch shuddered, groaned, and slowly began to open. A rush of stale air escaped, carrying with it the weight of centuries. A long, narrow passage stretched before them, lined with silent lights. Rallan stepped inside first, his boots echoing on the floor. Myra followed close, her eyes wide with wonder. Bran hesitated, then entered with a heavy sigh. The passage led them deeper into the ship. The air was heavy but breathable. Lights flickered as if the vessel sensed their presence. Soon they reached a vast chamber filled with silent consoles and dark screens. Myra brushed dust from a control panel and whispered, "This is a command bridge." As if answering her, the screens came alive. Symbols appeared, and a voice filled the chamber, calm, deep, and powerful. Designation confirmed. Vanguard 1. Guardian system online. The three stood frozen. The ship had spoken. The voice continued, steady and clear. Status, dormant. Awaiting orders. Identify. Rallan's throat was dry, but he forced himself to answer. We are humans. From Earth. There was a long silence. Then the voice replied. Earth. At last. You have returned. The chamber trembled as the ship began to awaken, and for the first time in centuries, Earth's forgotten prototype warship opened its eyes. The chamber lights glowed brighter, chasing away the shadows that had ruled for centuries. Dust drifted in the air, stirred by the soft hum of systems slowly coming alive. Rallan, Myra, and Bran stood in silence, listening as the deep voice of the ship spoke again. Systems check complete. Guardian system functional. Weapons offline. Shields offline. Power reserves at minimal levels. Identify commanding officer. Rallan looked at Myra, then at Bran. None of them had expected this. They were salvagers, not officers. Yet the ship seemed to believe it had woken to serve. Myra stepped forward cautiously. We are not officers. We are explorers. We found you buried in the desert. The voice replied with calm certainty. Explorers of Earth are still sons and daughters of Earth. You have authority. The Vanguard was created to protect humanity. Awaiting input. The three exchanged nervous looks. Bran rubbed his forehead. This is madness. A machine from before our time is speaking like it never stopped waiting. If we keep this up, the Empire will notice. Then we will be hunted. Rallan did not answer right away. His gaze moved across the massive control chamber. Everything about it felt alive, like a slumbering giant stretching after a long rest. He finally said, if this ship is truly what it claims, then it is not just metal and circuits. It is part of our history. The Empire has taken everything from Earth, but not this. This is ours. Myra's eyes shone with curiosity. The technology here is far beyond what the Empire gave us. Look at these consoles. Look at the energy readings. If this ship still functions, it could change everything. Bran's voice was low. Or destroy us all. The ship interrupted their debate. Minimal energy reserves detected. Recommend reactivation of primary core. Proceed to engineering section. Guided by the flickering lights along the floor, they followed a long passage downward into the heart of the vessel. The deeper they went, the more intact the ship appeared. Dust and silence remained, but no signs of decay or collapse. It was as if time itself had failed to touch the warship. They entered engineering. The chamber was vast, with towering pillars of machinery and dormant reactors stretching high above. In the center stood the primary core, encased in layers of armor, waiting to awaken. Panels along the walls blinked faintly, still alive after centuries. Core is stable, Guardian announced. Manual activation required. Myra studied the control panel with fascination. This design is brilliant. The engineers who built this were ahead of their time by centuries. If I reroute the auxiliary lines here, the main reactor should restart safely. Bran muttered, if it explodes, it will turn us into dust. But Rallan gave a single nod. Do it? Myra worked quickly, her fingers brushing ancient controls that responded as if no time had passed. The floor trembled as power surged through the conduits. The core pulsed with light, slow at first, then steady, then strong. Reactor online, Guardian's voice echoed. Primary systems at 40%. Weapons remain offline. Shields offline. Energy restoration in progress. As power returned, the ship itself seemed to breathe again. The walls vibrated with a steady hum. Lights burned brighter. Doors that had been sealed for ages hissed open. Myra stepped back from the panel, awe in her voice. It is alive again. Rallan turned slowly, taking in the sight. This ship was waiting. Not for officers. Not for the Empire. For us. For Earth. Before Bran could reply, the control panel lit up with urgent signals. Guardian spoke firmly. Incoming transmission detected. Long-range Imperial scouts have entered Earth's orbit. Detection probability is high. Recommend immediate defensive preparation. Bran's face went pale. The Empire. They must have traced the energy surge. We should never have turned this thing on. Rallan's jaw tightened. If they know, then hiding will not save us. This ship may be our only chance to stand against them. Guardian responded at once. Imperial forces are hostile. Historical data confirms oppression of Earth population. Directive remains unchanged, protect humanity at all costs. The chamber shook as secondary systems activated. Holographic displays lit up, showing the approaching Imperial ships. Even a small scout fleet carried enough firepower to level Earth's surface towns. The threat was real, and it was close. Myra whispered, we cannot fight them. Not with half the systems offline. Guardian replied, calm and steady. Prototype weapons require full power. However, partial systems are available. Tactical rail batteries at 20%. Cloaking device functional at 60%. Outcome uncertain. Rallan studied the holographic map. The Imperial scouts were moving quickly, no doubt searching for the energy spike that revealed Vanguard 1. If they found the ship unprepared, everything would be lost. We fight with what we have, Rallan said firmly. We cannot surrender this ship. If the Empire takes it, Earth will never be free again. Myra hesitated but nodded. Then we must learn to work with Guardian. Together. Bran looked between them, fear in his eyes, but he finally gave a slow nod as well. If we do this, there is no going back. The Empire will never forgive us. Then we stand, Rallan answered. His voice was steady, filled with a resolve that even Bran could not shake. The chamber lights shifted to red. Guardian's voice filled the halls, strong and unwavering. Command accepted. Vanguard 1 preparing for combat. Humanity shall not be forgotten. Outside, the buried sand began to shift as massive engines rumbled to life. The ground shook, dunes collapsing as the forgotten warship stirred. Slowly, impossibly, the Vanguard began to rise from the desert floor, revealing its colossal frame to the sky for the first time in centuries. High above, the Imperial scouts adjusted their course, drawn to the awakening storm. The forgotten relic was no longer sleeping. It was ready to fight. The desert trembled as the Vanguard lifted itself higher from the sand. Enormous engines shook free centuries of dust and stone. Clouds of sand rolled outward in every direction, covering the ruins in a golden storm. The forgotten warship rose like a mountain breaking through the earth. Its black hull gleamed under the sun, scarred by time but still unbroken. Rallan, Myra, and Bran stood on the command bridge, their eyes wide as the ship obeyed Guardian's will. Screens lit up with information. Systems hummed, weapons flickered with partial energy, and shields crackled faintly. The Vanguard was alive, though not yet at full strength. Imperial scouts approaching, Guardian announced. 4 vessels detected. Configuration, light cruisers. Armed and hostile. Bran gripped the edge of a console. His voice was tight. 4 cruisers. That is more than enough to destroy an entire settlement. We cannot stand against them with a half-broken ship. Myra's eyes moved across the glowing displays. We have advantages. Their ships are fast, but they are not built to face technology like this. Even at partial power, the Vanguard may surprise them. Rallan gave a firm nod. We cannot run. If we flee, they will track us. If we hide, they will search until they find us. Our only choice is to stand. The ship's deep voice spoke again. Tactical options available. Cloaking at 60% efficiency. Rail batteries operational at 20%. Probability of survival, uncertain. But standing is possible. The first flashes of movement appeared on the holographic map. The Imperial cruisers dropped through the atmosphere, their sharp hulls cutting against the sky. Trails of fire followed them as they descended at full speed. They have seen us, Myra whispered. On the surface, villagers in nearby towns pointed to the sky, staring in fear and confusion. They had never seen a ship rise from the sands, nor Imperial cruisers descend with such speed. Rumors spread quickly. Something powerful had awakened in the desert. On the bridge, Rallan stood tall. Guardian, prepare the rail batteries. Target their lead ship. Confirmed, Guardian replied. Weapon charge at 20%. Warning, reduced accuracy and reduced yield. The first cruiser came into range. Its dark hull gleamed as it banked toward the rising Vanguard. Imperial insignia glowed red across its wings. A voice cut through the open channel, sharp and commanding. Unidentified vessel. You are operating illegally in Imperial space. Shut down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Failure to comply will result in immediate destruction. Myra looked at Rallan, waiting for his answer. Bran muttered under his breath, we cannot fight them. If we surrender, maybe they will let us live. Rallan's voice was steady. No. If we surrender, the ship is gone. Earth is gone. There is no choice. He turned toward the console. Guardian, fire. The bridge shook as the rail batteries came alive. The sound was like thunder rolling through the ship. A bolt of light and metal streaked across the sky and slammed into the Imperial cruiser. The enemy ship shuddered violently, shields flashing, armor breaking apart. Flames burst from its side as it spiraled downward, crashing into the desert with a deafening roar. Silence filled the bridge for a heartbeat. Then Bran whispered, "We actually hit them." But the silence did not last. The other three cruisers reacted at once. Bright lances of energy cut through the air as they opened fire. Beams struck the Vanguard's shields, sending ripples across the dark hull. The entire ship shook under the assault. "Shields at 50%, Guardian reported. Sustained fire will breach in 3 minutes. Return fire," Rallan ordered. The Vanguard fired again. Another rail shot tore through the sky, grazing a cruiser and ripping a wing apart. The ship spun out of formation, struggling to stabilize. But the other two pressed harder, circling the Vanguard like predators. On the bridge, alarms flashed. Myra's hands flew across the panels, rerouting power. "We need more from the core. Guardian, divert non-essential systems to shields." "Confirmed," Guardian replied. The shields grew brighter, holding against the next barrage, though the ship still shook. Bran shouted, "We cannot take much more of this." Rallan's eyes remained locked on the holographic map. He spoke calmly, as if every word weighed more than fear. "Guardian, target the second ship. Fire when ready." The rail batteries thundered again. The shot ripped clean through the cruiser's midsection. In a flash of fire and light, the ship exploded, breaking apart into falling debris. 2 cruisers remained. They circled faster now, cautious but determined. One unleashed another beam at close range, striking the Vanguard's hull and sending sparks across the bridge. "Shields at 20%, Guardian warned. Myra bit her lip. "If they get through the shields, we are finished." Rallan clenched his fists. "Then we end this before that happens." He pointed at the map. "Bring us about. Guardian, line up the rail guns with both targets. Fire at will." The engines roared as the Vanguard turned with surprising speed for a ship its size. The rail batteries lit once more, unleashing their fury. One shot struck true, piercing through the third cruiser and breaking it in half. The fourth tried to evade, but the Vanguard's second blast clipped its engines. Fire erupted across its hull. With no control, it spiraled into the atmosphere, vanishing in a trail of smoke and flame. The desert fell silent again. The battle was over. On the bridge, the alarms quieted. Guardian's voice was calm but heavy. "Enemy vessels destroyed. Damage sustained. Shields at 8%. Systems holding." Bran sank into a chair, his face pale. "We just destroyed an Imperial fleet. Do you know what this means? They will send more. They will send many more." Myra's voice was soft, filled with awe. "But we did it. This ship, this relic from Earth, it stood against them. We stood against them." Rallan's eyes hardened. He looked out through the viewscreen at the rising smoke in the distance. "The Empire will not forget this. But neither will Earth. For the first time in generations, we fought back and we won." The Vanguard drifted above the desert, its dark hull gleaming like a shadow against the sun. The forgotten warship had awakened, and the Empire now knew that Earth was no longer silent. The desert sky was clear again, but the silence carried a heavy weight. The wreckage of 4 Imperial cruisers lay scattered across the sands, burning in the distance. Smoke curled upward, visible for miles. Villagers in nearby settlements stood in awe, whispering of the impossible sight. The Empire's ships had been destroyed, and the victor was not the Empire. It was something older, something born of Earth itself. On the bridge of the Vanguard, Rallan, Myra, and Bran stared at the displays. Guardian's voice spoke with calm precision. Enemy fleet destroyed. Probability of further Imperial response is 100%. Time until reinforcement arrival, undetermined. Bran leaned forward, his voice filled with dread. They will send more. Not just scouts this time. A full fleet. Myra touched the console, her eyes glowing with determination. But we survived the first strike. We proved this ship is more than a relic. It still has power. Rallan's gaze was steady. This was only the beginning. The Empire will not allow this to be ignored. They will come with everything they have. Guardian responded. Recommendation: leave atmosphere immediately. Escape velocity achievable. Vanguard 1 must be tested in open space. The engines roared, and the ship rose higher, leaving the desert behind. Clouds swirled as the colossal vessel pierced the skies. Villagers shielded their eyes as the shadow of the warship vanished into the heavens. Stories began to spread even before the dust settled. The Vanguard broke through the atmosphere, and the blackness of space stretched before them. Stars glittered like a field of fire, and Earth's blue curve shone below. For the first time in centuries, the forgotten warship sailed through the void it was built to master. System report, Rallan said. Core stable. Power at 50%, Guardian answered. Shields recharging. Rail batteries operational. Cloaking field functional. Long-range scans indicate no immediate presence, but Imperial reinforcements expected within hours. Bran shook his head. We cannot win against a full fleet. One ship cannot fight them all. But Myra smiled faintly. Maybe one ship is enough if it is the right ship. The Empire has never faced anything like the Vanguard. Guardian spoke again, its voice firm. This vessel was built with technologies hidden from the Empire. The designers of Earth prepared for a day when such strength would be needed. That day has arrived. Rallan studied the stars. His heart was heavy, but his voice was calm. Then we will take the fight beyond Earth. We will not wait for the Empire to crush us here. Show us their nearest outpost. The map lit up with glowing points. Imperial outposts surrounded Earth sector, each linked by patrol routes. The closest outpost orbited a barren moon not far from the system. Guardian spoke. Outpost defense level, moderate. Fleet presence, 2 light cruisers and 1 heavy frigate. Estimated survival chance with current systems, uncertain. Bran's face darkened. Uncertain is another way of saying impossible. Rallan's eyes hardened. No. Impossible was standing against 4 cruisers in the desert. And yet we did. We will strike first. We will show them Earth is not weak. The Vanguard's engines flared, and the ship leapt into the void. The stars stretched into lines as space folded around them. Within moments, the forgotten warship vanished into the silence of faster-than-light travel. When they emerged, the barren moon loomed ahead, cold and gray. Orbiting above it was the Imperial outpost, a station bristling with weapons and surrounded by patrol ships. Lights glimmered along its surface like watchful eyes. Detection probability rising, Guardian warned. They will notice us within 60 seconds. Myra's hands moved swiftly across the console. Cloaking field active. We may have a chance to strike first. Through the view screen, the Imperial station came closer. The cruisers moved in lazy circles, unaware of the storm approaching. Rallan's voice was steady. Guardian, target the frigate. Prepare the rail batteries. Confirmed, Guardian replied. Charging weapons. 30 seconds to fire. On the station, alarm suddenly lit. The cloaking field had hidden the vanguard only for a short time. The Imperial ships turned sharply, engines flaring. They had seen the ghost rising out of the void. Fire, Rallan ordered. The rail batteries unleashed their fury. The first shot tore through the frigate's shields and slammed into its hull. The ship shuddered, flames bursting along its spine. The second shot ripped through its engines, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. The cruisers reacted with speed. Beams of light slashed across the void, striking the vanguard's shields. The warship shook violently, sparks raining across the bridge. Shields at 40%, Guardian reported. Return fire, Rallan commanded. The rail batteries fired again. One cruiser's wing was torn apart, sending it spinning into the moon's surface. The other circled faster, striking again and again. The vanguard's shields dropped lower, alarms echoing. Myra's voice was sharp. We need more power. Guardian, divert everything you can to the core. The deep hum of the reactor grew louder, the ship trembling as energy surged through its veins. Power increased. Weapons at full charge, Guardian announced. End this, Rallan said. The vanguard unleashed a final shot. The rail battery glowed like a star before releasing its fury. The last cruiser exploded into fragments, scattering across the void. The station fired desperately, sending a barrage of energy across space. But the vanguard's weapons were already locked. 3 precise strikes hammered the outpost's defenses. A fourth shattered its central core. The station erupted in fire, breaking apart in silence. On the bridge, Bran's voice was filled with disbelief. We destroyed an entire station. With half power. Myra's expression was fierce. Now they will know Earth is not their servant. Rallan looked at the burning wreckage, his voice calm but unyielding. This is only the beginning. The Empire will answer, and they will answer with everything. But so will we. Guardian's voice filled the chamber, deep and strong. Message broadcast initiated. Signal carried across all channels. Transmission, humanity has risen. Across the stars, the message spread. Colonists in distant worlds, long silent under imperial rule, heard the words. Some gasped in disbelief. Others whispered with hope. A forgotten warship had returned, and with it, the spirit of Earth. The ruins of the destroyed Imperial station still burned in the void, fragments drifting silently around the barren moon. The wreckage glowed faintly in the starlight, a graveyard of fire and metal. But the true fire was not in the ruins. It was spreading across the stars. Guardian's message reached far and wide. Relays hidden in trade routes, secret networks among colonists, and old resistance lines all carried the words, humanity has risen. In distant colonies, workers who had lived their lives under imperial command stopped to listen. Farmers in the outer worlds, miners in the asteroid belts, and merchants in hidden ports all heard the same signal. Some did not believe it at first. A single ship could not stand against the Empire. But then came reports of the battle above Earth, and then of the destroyed outpost. The evidence was undeniable. A forgotten Earth warship had returned, and it had won. On the Vanguard's bridge, Rallan, Myra, and Bran watched as signals of response began to appear. Small transmissions, scattered but clear, came from colonists across the sector. Whoever you are, one voice said, you have given us hope. Tell us where to stand, and we will follow. Another transmission broke through static. For too long we have bowed. If Earth has risen, then so will we. Bran shook his head slowly, unable to believe what he was hearing. They are calling to us. They think we are leaders of some rebellion. Myra smiled faintly. Maybe that is what we have become. This ship is more than steel. It is a symbol. People believe again. Rallan's voice was steady, but his eyes held the weight of responsibility. Hope is powerful, but it will bring danger. The Empire will not ignore this. They will come with a fleet larger than anything we have seen. Guardian's voice echoed calmly. Imperial reinforcements are already on the move. Long-range scans confirm mobilization of a heavy armada. Estimated arrival, 3 days. Bran's face tightened. 3 days. We cannot fight an armada. We barely survived 4 cruisers. Rallan looked at the holographic map. Colonies glowed faintly, scattered across the stars like sparks waiting to ignite. We are not alone anymore. If people rise together, the Empire will not face only us. They will face humanity. Myra leaned closer to the console. Then we must answer the calls. We cannot just destroy ships. We must guide them, give them something to follow. Guardian responded at once. Recommendation: establish network of resistance. Transmit strategy. Coordinate forces. For the next hours, the Vanguard became more than a warship. It became a beacon. Messages flew across space, carrying news of the forgotten prototype that had awakened and defeated Imperial forces. Rallan's voice, calm and strong, spoke through the channels. People of Earth and colonies. You are not powerless. You are not forgotten. The Empire can be resisted. We stand not as conquerors, but as humans who refuse to bow. Stand with us. Together, we will rise. The words spread like fire. On a mining colony in the belt, workers shut down Imperial factories and raised banners of resistance. On a far trading outpost, smugglers once loyal only to profit pledged their ships to the cause. Even on hidden settlements deep in the outer systems, colonists who had never dared to dream of freedom began to prepare for battle. Bran watched the flood of responses with disbelief. They are listening. They are truly listening. Myra's voice was soft but firm. Because they were waiting for something like this. A single spark is enough to light the stars. Rallan's gaze stayed steady on the map, but inside he felt the weight pressing heavier. Every voice that joined was another life depending on him, on the Vanguard, on this fight. He had not asked to lead, but now there was no turning back. Guardian interrupted the moment with a warning tone. New signal detected. Source: Imperial Command Vessel. Transmission incoming. The view screen flickered, and the face of an Imperial officer appeared. Cold eyes, sharp uniform, and a voice like iron. Unidentified vessel. You have attacked the Empire. You have destroyed Imperial ships and stations. Surrender at once, or your people will suffer. Rallan did not flinch. This ship belongs to Earth. Earth will not surrender. The officer's eyes narrowed. Then Earth will burn. The screen went dark. Bran let out a long breath. That was no empty threat. They mean it. Myra stood tall. Then we cannot wait for them to strike again. We must be ready. Guardian spoke with calm strength. The Armada will arrive in 3 days. Vanguard 1 systems are recharging. Weapons and shields will be restored to 80% capacity in that time. Probability of survival remains low without support. Rallan looked again at the map. Colony after colony glowed brighter, signals of commitment reaching the ship. He turned to Myra and Bran. Then we will not face them alone. We will make sure of it. That night, the vanguard sailed through the dark, carrying messages of unity across the stars. It was no longer just a relic of Earth. It was the heart of a movement, the roar of a people who had remembered their strength. The Empire's armada was coming. But humanity was rising to meet it. The stars above Earth glowed calm, but the silence hid the storm that was coming. For 3 days, the vanguard had flown between colonies, sending signals, giving guidance, and showing proof that the Empire could be resisted. Everywhere, sparks of defiance grew brighter. Ships once used for mining were refitted with armor. Cargo haulers were armed with cannons. Colonists who had never held weapons before began to train. But all of them knew the truth. The center of this fight was not their small fleets. It was the vanguard. The warship of Earth was the shield and the spear. On the 3rd day, Guardian's voice broke the stillness of the bridge. Imperial Armada detected. Long-range scans confirm 20 warships. Composition: 10 cruisers, 5 frigates, 5 battleships. They are entering Earth's system. The map filled with red markers, each one a predator moving closer. Bran's hands clenched on the console. 20 ships. That is not a fleet, that is an invasion. Myra's face was pale, but her eyes burned with focus. Then this is the test. If we stand here, others will believe we can stand anywhere. Rallan's voice was calm. Guardian, bring all systems to combat readiness. The ship responded at once. Reactor at 80%. Shields charged. Rail batteries ready. Cloaking offline during full power engagement. The vanguard moved into position above Earth, its dark hull gleaming under the distant sun. Colonists across the planet looked up, seeing the massive shape waiting in the sky. It was no longer buried. It was alive, and it was ready. Moments later, the first wave of the Armada arrived. Cruisers slipped into orbit, their hulls glowing with Imperial insignia. They moved in formation, circling like hawks above their prey. Behind them followed the battleships, massive and bristling with weapons, engines glowing like fire. A voice cut through open channels, sharp and cold. This is Admiral Karras of the Empire. Surrender the vessel known as Vanguard 1, or Earth will be reduced to ashes. Rallan stood firm. This ship belongs to Earth, and Earth will never surrender. The Admiral's voice grew harsher. Then Earth dies with you. The first barrage struck. Beams of light and streams of missiles rained toward the vanguard. The warship shook violently as shields flared bright. Sparks showered across the bridge, alarms blaring. Shields at 70%, Guardian reported. Return fire, Rallan commanded. The rail batteries answered with thunder. Bolts of glowing metal tore through the void, striking 2 cruisers. One exploded in a flash, another spun out of formation, broken. The battles had begun. The Armada pressed harder. 10 ships surrounded the vanguard, firing in waves. Energy beams clawed at its shields, while missiles streaked across the darkness. Myra worked furiously at her console. Diverting power from secondary decks. Reinforcing shields. Bran's voice shook. We are outnumbered 20-1. We cannot hold this alone. Guardian spoke calmly. Allied ships arriving. From the edges of the system, small fleets appeared. Mining ships turned warships, freighters fitted with cannons, smugglers flying in loose formation. They were poorly armed, weak against battleships, but they came. Their voices filled the channels. For Earth. For freedom. for humanity. The colonist fleets dove into the fight, distracting cruisers and breaking formations. Against battleships, they were fragile, but their courage filled the void. "Focus fire on their frigates," Rallan ordered. "Guardian, target engines first. Cripple them." The vanguard's weapons fired again and again. Rail shots cut through engines, leaving frigates drifting helpless. Another shot struck a cruiser head-on, splitting it apart. The Empire answered with fury. A battleship moved forward, larger than any ship the colonists had ever seen. Its cannons glowed, releasing a storm of fire. The blast smashed against the vanguard, forcing it back. "Shields at 30%, Guardian warned. The bridge shook, panels cracking. Myra held on, shouting, "If that battleship fires again, the shields will collapse." Rallan's voice was firm. "Then we strike first. Guardian, prepare all rail batteries. Target that battleship's core." The vanguard turned, engines roaring. Its massive frame lined up with the approaching battleship. The enemy fired, beams ripping across the void, but the vanguard fired too. 3 rail shots blasted forward, glowing like comets. The first 2 slammed into the battleship's shields, shattering them. The third pierced its heart. The battleship erupted in a wave of fire, breaking apart into 1,000 fragments. The colonist fleets cheered across the channels. Hope surged like a rising tide. But the battle was far from won. More cruisers pressed in. Another battleship advanced, its cannons burning. Bran shouted over the alarms. "We cannot hold this forever. For every ship we destroy, more are still here." Rallan's gaze was unshaken. "Then we fight until Earth breathes free. Guardian, prepare for another strike." The vanguard moved forward again, leading the charge. Around it, the colonist fleets rallied, emboldened by the sight of the ancient warship fighting against impossible odds. In the darkness of space, fire spread across the stars. The Empire's armada had come to crush Earth, but humanity had found its roar. The forgotten prototype warship was no longer forgotten. It was the heart of a rising storm. The battle above Earth burned brighter than any dawn. Rail shots streaked across the void, missiles traced glowing paths, and beams of energy split the darkness. The vanguard fought at the center of it all, its black hull scarred by fire yet unbroken. Around it, colonist fleets pushed forward, ships that had once been miners and traders now fighting as warriors. Guardian's voice filled the bridge, calm even in chaos. Enemy strength reduced. 4 cruisers destroyed. 2 battleships neutralized. Remaining hostile forces, 13 vessels. Myra wiped sweat from her forehead, her hands flying over the console. "Shields at 20%. We cannot take another direct strike." Bran's voice was raw with strain. "There are too many left. Even with the colonists, we cannot last." Rallan stood tall at the center of the bridge. His voice carried steady strength. "We will last. We will stand. Guardian, target the nearest battleship. Full power." The vanguard roared as its rail batteries fired again. Bolts of glowing metal slammed into the massive Imperial vessel. Its shields flared, cracked, and shattered. The battleship tried to turn, but a final shot pierced its hull. It exploded in silence, fragments scattering like stars. Across the comms, colonists cheered. Their courage surged. Small ships dove into Imperial formations, striking fast, distracting, and forcing the enemy to split their fire. But the Empire did not waver. Admiral Karras's voice echoed across all channels, filled with fury. You cannot win. You are insects before the Empire. We will grind you to dust. Rallen answered, his tone firm and clear. You cannot silence humanity. We are more than you ever believed. The Admiral's fleet pressed harder. Cruisers unleashed heavy fire, beams tearing through colonist vessels. Several resistance ships exploded, leaving burning trails. The bridge of the Vanguard shook violently as a direct hit struck its side. Shields failing, Guardian warned. Integrity at 10%. Hull breaches in lower decks. Myra cried out, we are not going to last. Rallen, what do we do? Rallen's eyes locked on the map. His mind raced. The Armada was larger, stronger, but not perfect. If he struck the right blow, the rest might crumble. Guardian, he said firmly, analyze the fleet's command structure. Where is Admiral Karras? The displays shifted. One ship glowed brighter than the rest, a massive battleship at the heart of the formation. Guardian's voice was steady. Command vessel identified. Destruction of this ship may disrupt enemy coordination. Rallen nodded. Then that is our target. Brand's eyes widened. That ship is the strongest of them all. To attack it is suicide. Rallen's voice was calm, unyielding. Then we will risk it. Humanity needs this victory. The Vanguard turned, engines burning at full strength. Alarms screamed as more fire struck its hull, but the warship pressed forward. Colonist fleets followed, throwing themselves between the Vanguard and enemy cruisers. Many were destroyed, but they cleared the path. The command battleship loomed ahead, cannons glowing like suns. It fired a barrage that smashed against the Vanguard's weakened shields, tearing away armor and sending sparks across the bridge. Shields gone, Guardian reported. Hull integrity at 60%. Myra shouted, we cannot take another strike like that. Rallen's voice was firm. Guardian, charge all rail batteries. Focus everything we have on their command vessel. The ship's deep hum grew louder as power surged. The Vanguard shook as energy gathered, weapons glowing brighter than ever before. The enemy fired again, beams slashing through the darkness. Armor plates buckled, fires spread along the lower decks, but still the Vanguard pressed on. At the critical moment, Rallen shouted, fire! The rail batteries unleashed their fury. 5 shots tore through space, glowing like meteors. The first slammed into the battleship's shields, shattering them. The second and third ripped through its armor. The fourth struck the core. The fifth burst out the other side in a storm of fire. The command vessel erupted in an explosion so bright it lit the void like a second sun. The shock wave rocked the entire battlefield. Imperial cruisers faltered, their formation breaking as confusion spread. Guardian's voice echoed through the bridge. Command vessel destroyed. Enemy fleet coordination disrupted. Across the channels, colonist voices shouted with joy. The Admiral is gone. We can win. The Vanguard pressed its advantage. Colonist fleets swarmed the remaining ships. Some were destroyed, but many struck true. The weakened Imperial vessels began to fall one by one, until only fragments of fire remained in orbit above Earth. At last, the silence returned. The Armada was gone. The Empire had been defeated. On the bridge, Brand sank into a chair, his voice trembling. We actually did it. We destroyed the Armada. Myra's eyes shone with tears. For the first time, Earth is free. Truly free. Rallen stood tall, though his shoulders carried the weight of all who had fallen. His voice was steady, filled with quiet strength. We have shown the Empire that humanity will not bow. We have reminded them that Earth still breathes. Guardian's voice filled the chamber, calm and proud. Victory confirmed. Humanity has risen. The vanguard stands ready for what comes next. Across the stars, the message spread again. Colonies that had once lived in silence now cheered. People who had never known hope now spoke of freedom. The forgotten warship was no longer forgotten. It was the roar of humanity, a promise that the Empire would never again hold unchallenged power. The battle above Earth was only the first chapter. The war for freedom had just begun.